So how does performance fare in Resident Evil 4 on iPhone? Technically speaking, we're mostly looking at a 30 FPS update here. Throughout typical combat and exploration, the game does hit 30 FPS generally speaking, but there are some pretty big issues. Firstly, frame pacing is incorrect, like in a lot of 30 FPS iOS games. It's not horrible here. Resident Evil 4 fluctuates between 33 and 16 milliseconds every so often, with a steady beat of 33 millisecond frames in between. It's annoying but not a deal breaker, but there are some occasional very heavy frame rate drops that seem to come out of nowhere, where the game becomes a bit of a slideshow for a few seconds. These aren't terribly frequent, occurring maybe once every 5 or 10 minutes, but they do bring you out of the experience. I also noticed a couple of lengthy stutters during my gameplay, and there are some more conventional performance problems as well, as the game struggles to maintain its 30 FPS target in some moments. The frame times aren't wildly out of bounds here, so the game is just on the edge of maintaining 30 FPS and just can't quite get there. Resident Evil 4 isn't a great performer by any means, but it does fare quite a bit better than Resident Evil Village on iPhone. That title suffered from prolonged framerate dives during typical gameplay, even when running on the lowest settings, and these problems haven't been addressed at all in subsequent patches, as the footage you're seeing here is from the most recent update. For reference, the PS4 release ran Resident Evil 4 with an unlocked framerate that ran from 30 to 60 FPS in typical play. It wasn't ideal, but it does feel smoother than the iPhone code here, and its frame times tend to be more under control than the iPhone. PS4 did use reduced rate animation on enemy characters when facing large groups of foes, however, a concession that the iPhone doesn't employ. Loading times are another win for Apple's smartphone. A load that takes roughly 40 seconds on PS4 completes in just 7 seconds or so on iPhone, again probably attributable to the iPhone's advanced CPU and fast flash storage. On mobile platforms, every second counts, and the iPhone generally fares quite well when loading saves in RE4. The controls are a bit of a mixed bag. On the plus side, the game supports both Xbox Series and PS5 pads without issue, and there's even a toggle to swap button layouts between the PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo styles. Rumble works fine, and all the buttons function normally. Input lag is an issue though. I measured about 200 milliseconds input lag here when connected to this Bluetooth sliding controller, and the game has a pretty heavy feel in general. It's not unplayable, but it never really feels responsive. I'd recommend against trying to play this game without a gamepad though, because the touch controls are very bare bones. The game just presents every single button on the screen at all times, which makes it pretty tough to control. The best adapted iPhone games use context-sensitive controls, like the GTA Definitive Editions, with buttons only popping up as needed or serving a combined purpose depending on the situation. Simply overlaying a modern gamepad layout across the majority of the screen is not a particularly effective solution.